Hello and welcome to the third episode, and in this one we will talk a bit about environment in C#. That will include some environment variables, some other kinds of variables, and some environment arrangement. So I will tell you where you can use them and a bit about how you can use them. So first of all, there are a few, or rather a couple basic things, okay? Now this is a console application, so it's not perhaps where you would necessarily use both of them, but first of all, we have this thing called environment variables. Now, this is extremely useful when you develop websites or APIs or something that is hosted on IIS Manager. Okay, so if you use the manager, you can actually set these variables in your server. You can set them in your server, and for testing, for your sort of local running of the application, you can set it in Visual Studio. So basically you won't need to change any values in the actual code. You can simply upload it to the server, let it run on the server, and it will use different values. Particularly, this is very useful for database connection strings. When you have SQL Server, you need connection strings, and you probably have different databases for when you are testing, a sort of a sandbox mode, and then you have your live mode. Perhaps you have a few more options, and that can quite easily be implemented as well. So you go here, you find environment variables, it's in debug, okay, in debug, and then you click add. If you need to correct it, just click on that, and in this case we have test variable value. This is not an API project, and again, this is not the best place to actually use it. Okay, so mainly it is for the API, for the IIS. That is very, very common practice. Now, the second thing is something perhaps a bit more basic, a bit of an older thing. Okay, so we have application arguments. Okay, arguments. Now, if we go to program.cs, and pretty much every application of C# will have something like that, okay? It will have some starting point. APIs have it, Windows services have it, your console applications have it. Now, when you have a console application that is used for someone, say someone downloads it and uses it, you can actually use it as well. And you might have seen this. If you ever have used, say, something like OpenSSL to make your SSL certificates for uploading, you have definitely used it. And in the console, you basically give that .exe file directory, and then you give or list all these arguments for the program to consume. So these string arguments, they go into this string array. That is what the string array is for. It's not perhaps very commonly used. You won't see it perhaps in too many courses and videos, but it can be quite useful. And I would say it's more useful for Windows services. For Windows services, that's really the only way to actually set those environment variables, as you might call them as well. You can set them for any Windows service. Okay, when you run it, you get that little dialog. You can start it, stop it, and you can also set these little arguments. Okay, so the way you set them in here, for example, okay, you have say this one arg1, then we have a space in between them right here. You see the little space right here. Now the space separates the arguments. So this is array value, first array value, second array value would be in these quotation marks. So if you have spaces, you need to envelop the whole argument into that, into those quotation marks like that. You see, we have spaces. If we didn't have the quotation marks, we would have not 2 arguments, but we would have another 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and it would be a bunch of nonsense, right? So this is very important to remember. You separate them by a little space, and if you have spaces in the actual argument, you use quotation marks. Now to retrieve them, this is a simple array. Okay, it's a simple array, so you basically take the various positions of the elements in the array, and that's it. Now for the environment, you access the environment like that, and you use get environment variable. Get environment variable, you do the name, okay, choose the name, select the name, and you retrieve that little string, just like that. Very simple. And in this program, we just write it to the console, okay. Now notice one more thing. We have arguments, you see this argument, and then we have this one, but it is enveloped in this if debug. So this is another way on how you can somewhat deal with different environments, debug and release environments in this case. So if we are running right here on debug, this will print. If we will be running not on debug, it will not print. Okay, so let's run it now. Let's just see what it looks like. See, we have value, arg1, and argument. Okay, like that. Okay, so now if I were to change this to the release, you won't see that anymore. And in fact, if I kind of toggle it like that, you can see it sort of changes the color. It does actually change the color. It just takes some time to do, you see. Now it is on debug, so I can see it in sort of normal colors, right? If I choose release, I cannot see it anymore. I can see the words, but they are in gray. So if I run it again, you see, like that, value 1, arg1, but the third thing, or the second argument is indeed missing. So this is how you use them, this is where you use them, and with that, look forward to the next episode.